Robert Whittaker getting a dominant win over Kelvin Gastelum tonight in the main event of UFC Vegas 24. Just a masterclass in terms of striking, had some good wrestling mixed in. Looked like an entirely different fighter, just a man reborn. And, afterwards he said to Israel Adesanya, I think it's time our paths crossed again, and hinted at a fight somewhere in either Australia or New Zealand in a stadium once things settle down with COVID and everything's good for people to come and travel and do all of that. I mean, it's hard for me to disagree that, after tonight's performance, he doesn't get a shot at the belt next. Matt, what are your thoughts on his performance? And then we'll dive into what do we think's next for him.
Oh, yeah. First off, I thought the performance was fantastic. It's what we've kind of come to expect from Whittaker. Like, he's going to be really calculated, and when he sees his openings, he's going to strike quick, and he's going to land these combos. He's going to sting his opponent. And that's what he did with Kelvin Gastelum all night long. He found openings, was quick to hit him with combinations. Defensively, he was catching kicks. He was going for takedowns, mixing it all up really, really well. And that just kind of shows you that the level of fighter that he is. He can pretty much do it all in there. He showed us everything. Punching combinations to punching combinations ending with the head kicks to just, like I said, smooth takedowns, a couple of submission attempts in there as well. He did everything really well. And that's not to say that Kelvin didn't have a little success as well, because obviously he busted up Robert a little bit, but that also kind of speaks to how good Kelvin is. He made it an interesting fight. He came out in that third round pretty strong for the first 2.5 minutes or so, 3 minutes. But Robert, took over in the latter half. He was like, okay, all right, he's trying to come at me now. Let me figure this back out again. And he did. So it was a fantastic performance. His third win in a row, ever since he lost to Israel the first time around. Yeah, it's been 2 years now. So I'm sure it'll be right there around that same time. They fought in October the first time around. So I would assume that the rematch, if that is what is indeed next, what it should be, will probably take place around the same time. So, I think it's time for it. How did you feel about the match or his performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key word that you mentioned there was his defense. I mean, this was we've known Robert Whittaker to have outstanding offense. It's how he's been so successful at middleweight. But his defense has always been a little bit lacking. There's always been ways to hit him. I think this is the first fight that I can recall in quite a while. I'm not sure how many years, but I would say years, where he didn't get knocked down or stung too badly. And I think a huge part of that is his ability to really slip so much of that and also just dodge strikes. He blocked a lot more strikes. He slipped a lot more, rolled with a lot more punches. He looked completely different on defense in a way we have not seen him do before. And he mentioned in the post-fight show that he had done boxing rounds for this particular fight. He'd actually, worked with somebody in boxing and had said that he realized in boxing, couldn't take him down, couldn't throw kicks. And so he had to learn more how to slip his head more, do some more head movement, things of that nature in order to, if you were just purely boxing. And I think that translated extremely well into this fight against Kelvin, who I expected at least to land more than he did. He did bust him up a little bit. Yeah, of course. But Kelvin is also very good. And I don't think this is an indictment on Kelvin's performance, because I thought he was there. He was throwing good combinations. He was doing what he could. But Whittaker was just on another level tonight. And that new defense is what really excites me for Robert Whittaker moving forward. If he does indeed get the title match, which, again, I'm in agreement with you. He should get the rematch with Adesanya here. Because that's really the only thing I thought about in terms of if Izzy versus Whittaker 2 happens, how's it going to go? The one thing that kept coming up was, Rob doesn't have the strongest chin in the world and he gets touched. And we know how technical and the precision that Izzy has. So even if Rob is able to do well, he's probably going to get knocked down at some point or get hurt. After this performance, I'm not so sure. He might be able to roll with some of Adesanya's stronger punches and make Adesanya miss a little bit more. And that could make a huge difference. But I think it's been, 2 years. I think it makes all the sense in the world. This performance, I think, is the best Robert Whittaker we have seen in a long time, if not ever.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree, especially in recent memory. His last finish that he got was back in 2017 against Jacare. So he hasn't finished anybody in a while, but I mean, he's facing the top of the division. So there's going to be tough, hungry guys all looking for their title shot themselves. So it makes sense. Like, finishes are harder to come by the higher you get up in the rankings, and that's true in pretty much every weight class. I like what I saw defensively, but it does also leave still some room for concern because he did get busted up by Kelvin. So if Kelvin's still able to bust him up, leave him bruised and bloody, you would think Izzy's still going to be able to do the same thing. But there were a lot of improvements that we saw in there. I did like to see him catching the kicks and using those to get, takedowns, like push takedowns and stuff like that. Just because, Izzy's going to come with a wide variety of strikes. He's going to try to kick. He's going to try to do everything. So, yeah, the improvements were there. But my favorite thing about Whittaker and his style is that he doesn't force anything. He really doesn't. He stays patient and he waits for his openings. And when he sees them, he goes. He's never really hesitant, but he's patient. And that's a key thing that can, potentially carry him in a rematch. But I still think he got touched a little bit too much for my liking tonight, in terms of talking about the rematch with Izzy. But all around tonight, man, it was just a fantastic performance from him. And, won every round. There wasn't any any debate about that, really. So, he did what he had to do against one of the toughest guys in the division that has taken Izzy to the woodshed, himself, like fight of the year against Izzy. That hell of a fight, man. So tough guy. He went out there, made it look relatively easy. And, at the end of the day, it positions him for a rematch, and there's really no other fight for him to take. I don't want to see him in there against anyone else. I don't want to see him. Nobody else makes sense even. Like, the next guy that makes sense is Marvin Vettori. And that's even a rematch for Izzy as well. So there's no other fight for Robert Whittaker. It's got to be Izzy. And if the UFC even thinks about doing something else, we should all write a strongly worded letter to Dana White.
Yes, because that will surely get him to change his mind. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you that he did get touched up enough that there would be cause for concern there, especially against Izzy. But honestly, I think that's always going to happen, right? Even if he was dodging every single punch that Kelvin threw, I would say, okay, that's going to help you against Izzy, but I would still expect Izzy to land, right? That's just how good Izzy is. It's more about, for me, he was rolling with the punches enough and he didn't get hurt from some of Kelvin's bigger strikes because he was defensive enough to stop them from landing flush, which, he's so good at throwing punches without loading them up, without telling you where they're coming from, right? That stiff left that he throws that just seemingly comes out of nowhere is incredible. But that's been a big problem where he's thrown that and he's left his, face pretty much open for counters if somebody's able to read that or block it. And this time he was able to do a great job in still hiding that straight jab, but really making sure that on the counter, he was at least putting up his hand. He was at least rolling back a little bit, so he's not getting hit with a hard shot straight on. But again, that rematch, who knows how that goes. I'm excited for it. Again, I think it's the best test for Izzy or Whittaker. Vettori doesn't make sense yet. He could be in the wings, fight one more person, or you could have him as a backup in case things fall out, whatever you want to do there. But I think it makes a lot of sense to do the rematch now as well. If we do get the rematch, we've hinted at it a little bit here. Do you still see it going the same way? Do you still see Izzy getting the victory?
It's an interesting question there because Izzy would be coming off of a loss, and we haven't really seen. It'd be interesting. I think Izzy would probably still win. I think Robert would be a lot more competitive this time around, though. I see it going into the championship rounds. I can see it being a more competitive fight for sure. But I would still favor Izzy to be the champion at the end of the night.
Yeah, at this point, I'd have to do some more, tape watching, some analysis if I was going to make a hard prediction. But yeah, I would say I'd lean Izzy for sure. And I agree. I think it would not go the same way it did before, where, Whittaker's out of there almost at the end of round one. If there'd been another 20 seconds, he probably would have been gone. And then got taken out in round two pretty easily. I think this probably goes farther and is much more of a war. Much better fight overall. That's what I saw out of Whittaker. And I think that's what excites me the most is Whittaker I saw in there tonight, even if he loses against Izzy, is going to make it a much closer and more entertaining fight, I think, than the last time they met. So that's why, to me, it's definitely rematch time. And it's the fight to make. So let us know how you guys feel in the comments about Whittaker's performance tonight. Are we right in our assessment here? Do you think he looks better defensively and just overall? Was this his best performance to date? He is only 30 years old. Has he started to hit a new level? How do you think he would do against Izzy? Is Izzy the right fight to make for him next? Do you feel that Vettori should go ahead of him or he should fight somebody else? Let us know how you feel in the comments. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification, share the video and all that. And until we get this rematch, I'm with Matt. Get your pens and paper ready and your ink, your feathered pens, your ink, whatever they call it, the little blob of thing that holds your ink, and get ready because we're writing strongly worded letters in cursive to Dana if this fight doesn't happen.